Okay, so here's how I did the aerial piano shot. The angle was aerial. I shot it in my church from up in one of the lighting catwalks, looking straight down on the piano. As you can see, the stage is pretty cramped, but let's filter these. These are all the images I used. And to create the space in the stage, I moved the piano from where it was, and then cropped in a little bit and just cleaned up the stage in Photoshop. So this was the carpet that I used in Photoshop to really expand the space. And the shot that I ended up using was this one, and this is the raw file. And so before I pulled it into Photoshop, I edited looking at the piano and looking at my hands and skin tone. And so you can see before with experimenting with different lighting situations from the stage lights. And so after we got the shot of my hands, I wanted to experiment with different lighting on the actual piano to bring out details in here. And so I'll zoom in to just the piano, looking at this part. Once I left the piano, we experimented with different lighting situations, cycling through them with some harsh lighting showing shadows and highlights, and some flat lighting showing the piano plate. And so I used a combination of these three images. Also looking at the keys too, I wanted to make sure that I got some a nice flat lighting on the keys because my hands were casting a shadow as I was playing. So I used the keys from this one, the highlights of the plate from this one, and the fill light of the plate from this one. And I layered them all up together. And then of course the carpet right here, and all that together created this. Or actually, I refined the carpet a little bit, and this was the final one. I'm going to unflag this. So this was the final version of the photo, and so I'm going to reveal the PSD because the PSD already exists, and so I'm going to reveal it in Finder by pressing Command R. And so it's right here in Finder, and now I'm going to press Command O to open it. It's a very large file because I started with this full res 18 megapixel raw, and this is actually lossless. And so this is 18 megapixels in this area, and I extended it all the way. So the PSD is really big. And you can see if I view this 1:1, it goes all the way in on my hands. You can see how small this is. So it's a bit of a ridiculously big file. I'll probably never print it at full res, but I just couldn't bring myself to compress it. And so let's see, bring Photoshop up into here. And this is the PSD with all my layers, and I didn't focus on creating any of the dramatic lighting or gradients. I knew that I was going to do all of this kind of selective lighting and gradation in Lightroom. And so I just focused on getting it very flat and very even, so I had kind of a blank slate as far as creating a mood with the lighting. But so as far as the compositing goes, I'll turn off all this craziness and just show the carpet first. And so what I started with was this piece of carpet, which I showed is this, and it's just a cleaned up version of, after moving the piano, I just took out these, cleaned it up, pulled it into Photoshop. The first thing I did was reflect it And so you can see this stain is right here. And then I used a layer mask and kind of just blended the edge. And so it's blended. So this is with the layer mask off, and then it's just kind of blended in there. And then I combined both of these and reflected it upwards. And so you'll see, boom, there's a reflection. So you can kind of see this stain and this stain are reflected up into there. And I did the same thing with the layer mask, so you'll see this edge kind of blend in as the layer mask is applied. And so that is the space that I created with the carpet. And I went in to do some more fine detail work later to make it look less uniform and symmetrical, just to make it feel a little more organic. And then as far as the piano, let's see, I selected out the shadow. I'll deal with that later. Basically, each one of these elements is put in here, and I have a layer mask applying to each one of them. And so this is the raw shot edited from Lightroom into here. And I wanted to take out this section as well as fill in some of the keys and take out the carpet in the shot and put the carpet behind it. And so I did all that using this layer mask, and I just manually went in and painted all around this. And then I messed with some blending and opacities right here, but I intentionally left out the plate because I wasn't going to use it from this shot. I was going to use it from the three I was going to combine the three other shots. And so turning this layer mask back on, there's just a little detail with the keys. I won't go into that, but the fill of the keys, I wanted to use that one. And so that filled in the keys. And then this plate, I liked how golden the plate was, and I wanted to add in some more highlights. And so these are the plate highlights. And if I turn off this plate fill, you'll see that there's like really dramatic shadows in here, and it's not even lighting at all. And it's a little too detailed, and it kind of takes away from the simplicity of the composition. And so that's why I put back in the fill and just retain the highlights here. And so the layer masks for those look like, these are the highlights. So this is showing the highlights through the whole plate fill as layer masks work. And then the piano shadow placed me back onto the carpet. Oops. So there's the shadow. And so it took some fiddling around to figure out which layers to mask out and kind of punch a hole in, or which layers to show through, and the way to organize bottom to top. It just was really a matter of trial and error. But that's how this all came together. And then going through and doing more Lightroom adjustments on this one. Yeah, this is a large PSD. So doing more Lightroom adjustments on this one. It started like this, and then I used 2 graduated filters, just dealing with exposure. So there's a really gradual one and then a sharper one, so that it kind of slowly gets darker and then it all at once drops off, and that's what it looks like before and after. And then again with a couple radial filters, actually just one radial filter for this one. Decreasing the exposure as it goes outward, and also you'll see it decreases the clarity, so it gets slightly more fuzzy and you lose some detail on the carpet the farther away it goes. But if you zoom in on the carpet right here, it's really sharp and detailed, and as you get farther and farther away, it just slightly decreases in detail. And then I think that's about it. I boosted the whites a little bit so that there was more contrast, boosted the exposure a little bit, and then that was the final composition.